Hello. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are geographically speaking. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Today, I want to talk about loss and what an art it is to master it. I want to talk about grief and loss, and it is a critical skill. You know, most internet gurus want to teach you how to win. They want to teach you strategies for getting ahead, how to handle competition, how to be the best at what you do, how to accumulate wealth, how to win, how to earn things. But I think a much more critical skill is learning how to lose, because for each win, we do a lot of losing. Learning to let go then is a very important, a very critical skill to have. And there's not a lot of people teaching you how to gracefully let go. Good morning. Hello. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. I recently lost a few things of value. Some of them remain lost, and some of them I gained back. I lost my grandmother's pendant. You know, my grandmother loved me very much. I suppose you could say I was the favorite grandchild of my grandma. And one of the reasons I think that she enjoyed my company was because I always liked her, and I liked her all things. She had a very special personality. She liked to keep little trinkets, like treasures, hidden in a closet that she had. She had tons of different boxes, small boxes, medium-sized boxes, big boxes. And you never knew what she was hiding in those boxes. There were so many of them. But every once in a while, you would go to her house and she would take out, with so much care, she would take out one of the boxes and carefully open it and remove some sort of satchel from inside the box and then open it. And she would surprise you with something unexpected, you know? She would get out, I don't know, maybe a baby tooth of yours. And in your mind, you would be like, oh, wow. You've been holding on to this for 20 years. How do you know it's mine and not my cousin's, you know? But you knew she knew it was yours. She would give you, I don't know, she would give you like a piece of jewelry. She gave me once a very important piece of jewelry for her. It was beautiful. It was a pendant. It was like, it had the shape of like a tear. It was made out of gold. It had a ruby in it. And it was from the 1930s. It was already old when she was a child. And it was given to her by her father on her 50th birthday. And she passed it on to me. Like, she didn't hold on to these things. It wasn't out of jealousy or like possessiveness that she kept all these trinkets. I think she kept them because she wanted to pass them down eventually. And she did to me. So I treasured this thing like crazy. Then I moved out. I moved to another country, and I haven't seen my grandma since, but I kept her pendant. And I wouldn't really wear it much. I would keep it in a little jewelry box that I had because it was too valuable for me to wear it. Not in terms of money, because, it wasn't really an expensive piece of jewelry. But it was emotionally important. It was like the one remaining piece of evidence that that relationship ever existed. It was kind of the one thing that I still had that tied me to my childhood and the context that I grew up in. And I would take it out and look at it and then put it back in the jewelry box. It was a treasure to me. But I went to Mexico. I moved to Mexico during the pandemic, and I made a mistake. I hired a housekeeper that I didn't vet thoroughly enough, I suppose. And so she stole everything in my jewelry box, and including my grandma's pendant, and I never saw it again. I texted her. I asked her, please, I beg you, give me back my jewelry. I will pay you much more than it is worth. I'll pay you 10 times what it's worth. It is really valuable to me. But she pretended to be offended about me calling her out as the criminal that she was. She pretended to be offended. How dare you? How dare you accusing me of stealing your jewelry? She was the only person who had access to my room, to my bedroom, other than like me and the people closest to me. So it was her, 100%. But I never get it back, and it was very heavy on my heart. I felt extraordinary amounts of sadness and also guilt. Like, this was a piece of jewelry that my great-grandfather had passed down, like had gifted my grandma on her 50th birthday, and she had given it to me, of all people. And, I felt really, really bad for a long time, Hello. Good to see you. How are you? So I felt really, really bad. This weighed on my soul, and it still kind of does. And this is a perfect example of losing something against your will, when something is taken from you. It's important to come to terms with this type of loss, because we came into this world naked, and we're going to leave this world naked. And whatever things we can earn or accumulate while we live will be taken away before we die. Like, we're not taking anything with us. We're not pharaohs. We're not going to be buried with our earthly possessions. So all of these things that we acquire while we're living, that we place so much importance on, emotional importance, but also like material importance and status, and all these games that we play, all of these things that we consider to be winning will be gone. During your lifetime, you will have to say goodbye to each and every single thing that you have. It'll be taken away from you, like my pendant was taken away from me. Nobody's gonna ask permission to take away everything you got. You're gonna have to say goodbye to all your possessions, everything that you have accumulated, all the things that you surround yourself with, your furniture, your clothing, your car, if you have one, property, if you have it, anything material that you have gained or accumulated, pieces of jewelry, whatever, it's gonna be gone. One way or another. Every little thing that makes you feel proud about yourself, like titles, accolades, your position in society, respect from other people, all of that is going to be gone. You can't take it with you. Your relationships, your family members, They're gonna die. Your relationships with people that you really care about, it will also be gone. In the end, it's just gonna be you, your soul, and your own judgment about the things you did and didn't do. That's the only thing that you will have at the end. So it is really important to get used to the feeling of losing things more than it is important to learn how to win and how to get them, because you're gonna win a few times, but I promise you're gonna lose 100 more times that you're gonna win. And it is very important to learn how to let go with grace and dignity. And if you can, and you still have strength, and you're still having fun, then you need to learn how to get up and continue. But you can only do this if you can tackle loss with a sense of, you need to forgive yourself for your shortcomings, and you need to learn to say goodbye to things and be okay with it. I am okay with losing my grandma's pendant. It still hurts a little, it still stings when I talk about it. In time, I will feel better, and in time, it'll just be gone. Both the pendant and the feelings associated with the pendant, and at one point, even the memories of the pendant will be gone. So I just need to accept it and move on. And so that is what I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to talk about losing and what an art it is to master it. Now, I think the first time we get a glimpse of what losing is when children learn about death. Before then, children don't even know that life is going to end. So they live in a state of constant joy and excitement and merriment, but also they don't really have much of a grasp when it comes to time, like timelines. They don't understand past, present, and future, and especially they don't understand there's finality to life and that one day they will die. And so learning this, it usually happens around 7 years old. It varies. Some children figure this out before others, and some kids take more time, but it's usually around 6 or 7 years old. One day, it just hits them that there is one thing called death, and we all have to go through that. And it is a life-shattering experience learning about this, like a before and after for children. Like before learning that you could die, your life had a different color palette, I suppose. And then after you learn that you're going to die, your life fundamentally changes. It's like a tectonic change. I remember when I learned that I was going to die. I don't know if you guys remember when you were going to die. But I remember I was in preschool. I even remember like the specific spot I was in the building when it hit me. And for the following weeks, there was nothing else I could think of. I remember thinking like, I wish genies real and I could get a lamp, because my one wish would be, I don't want to die. I want to live forever. So that was kind of an obsession for me for a long time when I was a child. But then I got over it. Children are very resilient. They, come to terms with the idea. For a while, they have nightmares. It scares them. They're very afraid of dying and monsters and all of that. But eventually, they kind of accept it and move on. I had another realization like that a couple of years later. that I remember very vividly. This was my second encounter with the concept of loss and finality. So I think it was around 1994 or so. And it was a different era, okay? We're talking about things that will make us cringe right now were very popular, like figure skating. Kenny G and figure skating were like everywhere. We were very much into saxophones, and figure skating and like the Hamburglar was everywhere. This was 1994, okay? I think the Tower of Terror had just been inaugurated in Disney. So free fall rides were like all the rage. I don't know, it was quite a decade, but 1994 was a special year, I suppose. So figure skaters, right? And Tonya Harding. Do you guys remember who Tonya Harding is? Or was? So Tonya Harding was a figure skater, and she was very famous. She was in the American team for figure skating. And her husband, or her ex-husband, was involved in like paying some dude to grab a metal baton and attack her competition, the other skater that was competing against her, on her knees. So like he hit her with a metal baton on her knees in order for her not to be able to participate and then get disqualified, I suppose, and for Tonya Harding to have a chance at winning. It was everywhere. Like people went crazy with this story. Like we're talking about 24/7 coverage of the Tonya Harding thing. They went to trial. The ex-husband declared himself guilty. Then Tonya Harding declared herself guilty. Then she got expelled from the, I don't know, I guess the Association of Figure Skaters. The thing is, it was everywhere. And then shortly after, like a couple of years after, another figure skater called Tara Lipinski won the gold medal. So we had like 2 years of like back-to-back figure skating things on the news. And I remember watching all of this as a child. I must have been quite young. And I remember asking my mother, because, I saw these girls doing these pirouettes and acrobatic things on ice, and they had beautiful dresses, all sparkly. And, the whole story felt like a life of adventure, your husband break somebody's knees, just the romance, the drama, the thrill, the scary, like it had like it was an adventure. So I asked my mom like what it would take for me to become a figure skater when I was older, like when I grew up, right? And I remember my mom telling me that was not a possibility for me, because these people started training to become figure skaters when they were like 5. And there was not an ice skating rink in my city. So that ship had sailed, baby. I was not going to become the next Tonya Harding. And it may not seem like it. It sounds like such an innocent exchange, really. But it shattered my world. It was like almost as big as like learning that I was gonna die. Was learning that I was never gonna be Tara Lipinski. And it's not even like I was particularly obsessed with figure skating, mind you. I didn't really care about figure skating. But it was the idea of the fact that there were doors that were already closed to me. Inside my mind, I wanted to live every single life that was possible, I wanted to feel what it was like to be every single person. Like I wanted to be a figure skater, but I also wanted to be the homeless drunk asking for money in the corner, and I wanted to be a TV news anchor, and I wanted to be the janitor that cleaned the studio that the news anchor was, after she was gone. I wanted to be everybody, everything, all at the same time. And I've never told anybody this, by the way, because it's kind of embarrassing to tell you the truth. But this was really what was in my mind as a child. Like, somewhere in my mind, I really had this hunger for life, that I wanted to experience what every single person out there felt. I was so curious, like, to know what it was like to be them, like what it was like to skate on an ice rink for a living, what it was like to get in those sparkly dresses, and what it was like to sleep on a cardboard on the street, and being drunk and having no money, and what it was like to me, there was no distinction. It wasn't like, I want to do this because I'm gonna be proud, or I want to do this because I think it's beautiful. No, to me, it was like I had a thirst for experiencing the entirety of the human experience. And this was the thing that woke me up to the fact that that wasn't possible. I was never gonna be a figure skater, It was a very sad realization. That's when after thinking about this for a long time, it is impossible for me to be everything that is in the world. I have to be just me. And by being me, I will be closing off 1 billion doors to the things that I'm never gonna be. So I figured, so what can I do if I wanna know what it's like? So that's when I started reading a lot. That's when I became obsessed with books. Because to me, that was the only way I could possibly learn what it was like to be a drunk living in the streets, and also what it was like to be Tara Lipinski, was to at least read about it. Read their stories, read stories about that kind of thing. And eventually also writing. As a writer, I figured that I could embody anyone I wanted. I could be, a banker. And on the next page, I would flip a page and I could be the janitor that cleaned his office. So this was very exciting to me. And for a long time, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a writer. Unfortunately, my stories were not very good. My stories sucked. They weren't very good. I realized that it was very difficult for me to imagine what it was like to be something that I had no experience with. The gaps between my shitty stories and what reality would be were very disappointing to me. Observation was a very poor substitute for actual real life experience, it seems like. It was such a poor substitute. To me, it was imagine that you go to a pastry shop and, there's all these delicious cakes. There's a brownie, there's a, sponge cake that you really like. There's a red velvet cake. There's key lime pie. There's an apple pie. There's all kinds of cakes and pastries and delightful things. And you don't want to have to choose one, right? But when you finally do, you can't even eat it because it's behind the glass. So that was excruciating. The pain of not being able to actually taste the cake made me feel what am I even doing here? Why am I even at the mall if all I'm going to do is window shopping? This makes no sense. It's literal torture. Literal torture. So kind of like the girl who sold matches. Do you guys know that story? It's a very depressing story. But today's subject is kind of depressing too, right? We're learning to welcome these feelings into our lives, right? So the little girl who sold matches, I don't even know what the proper title of the story is, but it's a very grim story about a little girl who, it was winter, it was very cold, and the little girl was trying to sell matches The little match girl, exactly. So the little match girl, she was trying to sell her matches to people, but she wasn't being very successful. Yeah, she was not being very successful, and she was very cold, and she was afraid of going back home because she hadn't sold the matches. And so her father was going to be mad that she didn't sell them, and so she didn't want to have to face her father's ire, I suppose. So she just wanders around in the cold, and in order to warm herself up a little, she starts lighting up the matches, but matches are not candles. You light up a match, it gets consumed very quickly. So she would have to keep lighting matches one after the other in order to warm herself up just a little bit. And every time she would light up a match, while the flame of the match was lit, an image would pop into her mind. You know, the image of a cozy, warm home. And then the light would go, off. And then she would light another one. And it was the feeling of hot, warm, delicious soup as it passed through her, mouth, throat, etc. And then the light would go off again. She would light up another match. And she had to light up almost all of her matches. And eventually, one of the last images was the image of her grandmother, who had passed away. And turns out the grandmother had come into her mind to take her away with her. And the little match girl died from cold on the street. They found her body the next day, and she had a smile on her face from, I guess, the memory of her grandma or something. It's a very sad story, honestly. But I guess it's kind of like that, right? Like you have things for a second, like when the light of the match goes up, lights up, but eventually things, you lose them. It's like castles in the sand. You build a castle, the wave comes through and the castle is gone. And then you build up another castle in the sand, and then the wave comes back and it's gone again. And this is life, like Sisyphus, I suppose. This is what life is, How everybody's wants to teach you how to build the castle properly. That's a great skill to have, learning how to build the castle in the first place. But the wave is coming, whether you want it or not. And isn't it also important to learn what to do once the castle is gone? Because it's important, an important thing. So the first loss is knowing that your life is not going to be forever. It's learning that you'll die. But the second loss is everything that you will never be. The ghost of all the lives you're never going to live. Learning that in order to be yourself, in order to define yourself, you actually have to quit everything that you're not. The very act of defining who you are is a little bit like dying, because you define yourself by what you're not. And once you're defined, all of the things that you have pushed away from you, that remained on the outside of the person that you have defined yourself as being, is a door that you have closed, is everything you'll never be. So it's a little bit like dying too. It's the lives that you'll never, ever had and never, ever lead. And it's important that you do this process, because eventually, this all happens as a child, I guess. It's very important to define who you are, right? Because you have to be a functional member of society. And if you don't do this, if you don't construct a story, a definition of the type of person that you are, then how are you going to function? How are you going to explain to other people what you are about? So you construct the story of who you are and who you are not, right? It's both things. This is who I am and this is who I am not. And you build this the best way you can, right? You try to pick things that make you feel good and things that people approve of, because you don't want to be rejected by anybody in your life. So armed with all of this knowledge, you create this image of the person that you are, and you inhabit it, like you put it on like a costume, and you feel very good. People applaud you for doing this, for declaring, like people are always telling children, like, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And children have to like define themselves, like, I want to be an astronaut. Well, if you're going to be an astronaut, then that means you're not going to be a soccer player, right? Like you have to pick just one. And then the adults are going to applaud you for picking and choosing. It's part of learning who you are. And that's how people start constructing their identity, I guess. And they become very proud, very attached. So while at the beginning, learning that I was never going to be Tara Lipinski broke my heart, eventually, like knowing that, okay, I'm not Tara Lipinski, I am Yael, and this is me. And you start to like who you are. You start to become attached to this person and happy that you're not other people. Now you're happy that you're not the drunkard in the corner, right? You're happy because other people, it starts to feel kind of foreign and alien and weird, and you definitely don't want to be other people because that's a whole other level of crazy. Yeah. So all of these ideas of being or not being end up being buried with your childhood memories. So you don't really have much access to all of this process that people typically do, right? You move on with your life, you celebrate your identity, you become attached to it, it becomes like who you are. A bit of a shield, right? From that existential dread of not being everything else. And you start to learn from society that acquiring things and accumulating things is something good, and wasting things and throwing things in the garbage and letting go of things is bad. And just to give you an example, you learn that wrapping paper, if you're like me, if you're like I was, you would love the feeling of getting a present and then like tearing the wrapping paper and like making a mess and like opening it because you're happy, you're so excited that you got a gift and you just want to know what it is, and so you ravage the wrapping paper. But then I don't know, maybe there's an adult in your life, maybe your grandma or something, that's like, no, don't do it, don't do this, wait. We have to carefully remove the wrapping paper and like fold it and put it away so that we can use it next year. Don't tear the wrapping paper, just go slow. Do it very carefully. Be subtle. And so we learn, okay, so we shouldn't throw wrapping paper away. Let's just, keep it in a drawer somewhere. And then maybe someday we'll use it. And most of the time you don't. By the time you have to give someone else a present, you've forgotten that you had that little half-crumpled piece of wrapping paper stored away somewhere. Some people make a big deal about throwing out food, for example. You finish eating your food and there's still food on the plate because you're full, and they start to give you a stink eye when you like want to throw it out. You want to put it in the garbage because you already finished. And some people think that that's bad. They feel bad, they feel guilty about throwing away food because there's always hungry children in Africa, right? As if your food was going to magically transport itself to Africa and land on the children's bellies. It's not how it works. That is not how it works, all right? But that is how it works. You know, how you start to learn that hoarding stuff is good, getting rid of things is bad, and we become little hoarders. We have drawers full of notebooks and board games and things we never use, and the cabinets become very difficult to open and close because there's clutter in them. There's clothing that we bought and we didn't really like it, or maybe we did, but we didn't notice that it didn't really fit well, so it was uncomfortable. So we haven't worn this in a very long time, but we refuse to throw it out because it was expensive. And so every time we open the closet, this weird top that we paid way too much money for gives you the stink eye because you should be wearing it, but you're not, but you're also not throwing it away. So it's just like a little pebble in your shoe, really. And it's the accumulation. It's like death by 1,000 cuts with all the stuff that you should probably get rid of, but you don't. You know what the problem is with all this stuff that you accumulate? The problem is it prevents you from moving forward. And I'll give you an example. Imagine if you only had the only possessions you had is what you could fit in a backpack and maybe a sleeping bag and a pair of shoes. You could literally move anywhere at the drop of a hat. You could move to another country. You could go on adventures. You could be anywhere you wanted. You have nothing pulling you back. But what happens is you start bloating, hoarding stuff, start buying expensive furniture, settling, they call it, I guess. And the problem is, now you have all this expensive furniture, so now if you want to move to another country, for example, you feel really guilty about getting rid of the furniture or sending it or putting it away in storage. So you kind of close the door on the possibility of moving somewhere else. You're just like, I can't. I just have all this furniture. So it becomes something that drags you back, prevents you from doing other things because you don't know how to lose things. You knew how to acquire the expensive furniture. So you learned how to win. You learned how to get the money to buy the expensive furniture. You learn how to get it, right? You're an expert now at buying sexy designer furniture. But now, you know what you don't know? You know what the skill you're missing? Learning how to let go. Learning how to lose. Learn how to lose the furniture so when it's no longer serving you and you want to move somewhere else, you can just close the door on it and not feel guilty or terrible or not decide that you're never going to move again because you have all this sexy furniture and what are you going to do with it? And this is the reason I say this is because so we've talked about the most obvious types of losses, right? Like when something is torn away from you, like when somebody steals from you or you lose your home. Like imagine the enormous amount of grief that somebody who lost their home in the Pacific Palisades fire must have felt, right? That's like a loss that cannot be prevented. People are not guilty of losing their homes, and they got their homes torn away from them in a very violent way. Pacific Palisades fire, right? We have talked about this type of loss. It's no question about it. You lost a very big part of your life. Some of the people in the Pacific Palisades had worked their entire lives to afford a house there, and now it's gone. And they have no savings. Maybe they still have a mortgage on the house. Now they have to continue to pay a monthly payments for a house that's gone. So depressive. So sad. So we have talked about this type of loss, like unavoidable, earth-shattering, terrible. And we have also talked about the loss of opportunity, like the things that you will never be because you chose something else. Right? Well, now let's talk about, losses that we have on our day-to-day lives as we negotiate our circumstances. Most people feel like life is a winning or a losing game. This is why they want to teach you how to win, because they feel like you can be a winner at life or a loser at life. But in reality, things are much more nuanced than that, because life is trade-offs. Everything in life is a trade-off. There's never purely winning and purely losing. That never happens. In life, every time that you want to win something, you have to lose something to get there. So let me give you an example. Imagine that you have a job, and this is not your ideal job. You like this job. It's close to your house. Very, very little time and effort spent on commuting because it's so close. And it has comfortable hours. It's not too demanding, but the job has low reputation and low pay. For example, you could be working as, you could be working a blue-collar job at, say, Amazon as a warehouse employee, okay? Maybe you're like a secretary at Amazon warehouse, whatever. And this job isn't perfect, but it's close to your house. It's low energy, reliable. So now you have a new job offer, and it's exactly what you wanted. It's high pay and high reputation. You will finally be able to use your degree because it's related to the thing that you studied. But there's always going to be a trade-off here. Like, the job is probably far from your house. So now, okay, you take this job, you get a better pay, you get a better reputational thing, but the job is like an hour and a half away from your house. So now you're spending an hour and a half to get there and an hour and a half to go back to your house. And the job is very energy intensive. You have to work a lot. So that's the trade-off. So what do you prefer? Are you winning or are you losing? Well, it depends. It depends on what you want. So if you really want reputation and higher pay, and you don't mind letting go of comfortable hours and low energy expenditure and no commute, then surely you're taking a win by moving jobs. But it could also be true that maybe you want a higher pay, but you're not willing to sacrifice your time and effort in order to get there. And in that case, it would be much smarter to you. It would be much more of a win to just stay where you are. Everything in life is trade-offs. This is why, this is a very valuable piece of knowledge that I'm sharing with you, and it's key to learn how to lose things, right? This is key because this will allow you to see them coming. And I'll give you one example. You guys know Ozempic. It's a drug for losing weight. People who want to lose weight will take Ozempic, and semaglutide is the name of the drug. It is a drug that was originally prescribed to people with diabetes, right? But now anyone who wants to lose weight can have semaglutide prescribed and have it and lose a bunch of weight. This is why we have seen a lot of celebrities lose weight lately, like from, Selena Gomez to Adele, and what's the name of that funny guy Jonah Hill, and even people who made being fat their identity. Lizzo, is that her name? Lizzo. Everybody's losing weight, and I'm happy for them. But the minute that I saw this, the promise of Ozempic is, it's a drug that when you take this drug, you lose a bunch of weight without making any effort. You just don't have the appetite anymore. Whatever it was that made you want to overeat, it is gone. So now it's very easy for you to lose weight. You don't get diabetes. You get your sugar spikes under control. It sounded way too good. And I kept thinking, where is the trade-off? Where is the trade-off? Is it super, super, super expensive? No, it's not. So the trade-off must be there somewhere, because there's never a win without a loss. So what are these people losing without knowing in order to get this? And now it's coming out that apparently Ozempic, it puts in danger your life. People who've been for a long time on Ozempic are now at risk of dying. And I saw this and I thought, of course they are. That's the trade-off, your health. Obviously, because losing weight on your own is a lot of work. It's not easy. You have to control your appetite and do some exercise and continuously police your own eating habits to remain slender. Losing fat, turns out, it's not easy. Everything else in life you're gonna lose very easily if you don't pay attention, but weight takes work. Losing your figure is easy. Losing weight is not. So if these people are losing weight without any effort, then that must come from somewhere else. That trade-off is there, just I promise you. The trade-off is the fact that you need to keep taking the drug, or regaining the weight is an issue for those who stop. That's not a trade-off. You're not seeing it clearly. That is not a trade-off. That is not a trade-off. Taking a drug, like going to the doctor and get another prescription, is not a trade-off for the benefit of losing the weight. It's not a trade-off. You get a lot of winning by losing the weight. Not only do you get slender, which feels good already, you get clothes that fit you, but also you get society to respect you again. Tabloids posting pictures of you and applauding you. So you get a reputational boost. You feel better. You look better. And all of this without an iota of effort. The trade-off is not having to refill your prescription. That is not a trade-off. The trade-off is, what are you putting on the other side of the balance, right? You remember that, there's an Egyptian god that weighs your heart against a feather to see if which one is heavier in the afterlife? This is the same thing. If you put Ozempic on one side of the scale, what are you going to put on the other side to counterbalance it? Because it's going to be a big thing that you're going to put on that scale to balance it out. So that's with Ozempic. And whenever you see something that's too good to be true and you don't see the downsides, make sure you look more into it, because in order to win, you always have to lose something. In order to win, you always have to lose something in order to win. Life is trade-offs. It's just trade-offs. It's absolutely 100% trade-offs wherever you look. If you're winning something, you're losing something at the same time. And it's important for you to realize this. You can't go through life thinking that you're going to win something without sacrificing something else. There is a cost to absolutely everything. There is not a free sandwich. It's very important to know this, and this is part of the reason why you have to be comfortable with losing. I lost a couple of years ago, I think it was 2021, I got tired of being fat and I went on a carnivore diet and I lost 40 kilos. It's 80 pounds. I was slender. I was very happy. but I gained all the weight back. Lowering weight helps to reduce chances of becoming diabetic and or improving your diabetic situation. Also, may reduce hypertension and many other comorbidities. Yeah, of course. Sure. It's great. Losing weight is great. But it comes attached to other things, and sometimes people don't see them. Ozempic face is nothing but the face of someone who has lost weight very fast. If I lose weight very fast, naturally, I'll also get Ozempic face. I lost 80 pounds in, I think it was like 2 months. It was very fast. And I also it wasn't Ozempic face because I didn't lose enough weight to have Ozempic face. But my face did take a hit. Like, there's many places in your face that fat is stored in. So when you go through a diet or you lose weight very fast, your body starts to absorb fat from your fat storage, and you can choose where it gets the fat from. Like, you probably wish it got fat from your belly and like your buttocks and like whatever, like the places that you find fatter in your body, but your body's not going to go exactly where you want it to go. So sometimes it'll take fat from your face, and that means not only the cheeks, of course, and if you have like a double chin, it'll probably go too, but the orbicular, like the fat around your eyes, there's a lot of fat stored in here, and your body will take it, and that's when you start seeing like their eyes become like sunken, and they get like more like darker circles around their eyes, is because there's a lot of fat in here. And when your body starts absorbing all that fat, suddenly it looks like you have very prominent eyeballs, very hollow eye sockets. And you get like, your face becomes like, So you can't really choose where it's gonna take fat from. But anyway, what I meant by that is anything in life is a trade-off. And it also works the other way, believe it or not. When something gets taken away from you, when you lose something, there's usually a hidden win that you never anticipated, because it's a trade-off. So if you lose something of value and you're feeling very bad about it, ask yourself what you won. What's the hidden win? What's the silver lining that is hidden under your loss? Because there is always one. And I'll give you an example of this. Sometimes you might do something that goes against the wishes of people that you have around you. You might take a very big reputational hit, for example, and people in your life start to shun you. So you decide to step away because you feel like you have been shunned or ostracized, or somebody's ghosting you and they're not responding. And sometimes this is done by people who are very, very close to you. So you're kind of losing them and you don't know why. And you're trying to ask for explanations, but they don't always give you an explanation. So losing somebody in your life that you care about and you don't always have an answer as to why they're leaving, this can be extremely painful. You wonder what it was that you did, if what you did really was that terrible. Like, if you know what you did, but it's something that you don't think concerns them, you might be left wondering like if you did really warranted the severance of the relationship. And we tend to dwell a lot in the sense of loss there, especially if there's no closure. People will wonder what happened, why, what did I do wrong? Could I have done something differently? Is this my fault? But they miss a win that they will only know about later. And it's sometimes there are things in life that are weighing you down. Relationships, you have to pick them very carefully because relationships shape you. So when you have somebody in your life who doesn't have your best interest at heart, you will be shaped to the image they have of you. Sometimes these people don't really care about you or have your best interest at heart. So when the relationship is severed, even though it's painful, you're losing dead weight. You're losing something that you didn't realize, but it was bringing you down. Once the feeling of loss fades, and it will fade, you realize that you feel more free. You travel lighter. There is a sense of freedom that comes from losing relationships that people that didn't really support you or had your best interests at heart. And this is definitely a gain, even though it sounds like hope maybe, but it's not. It's real. In fact, I used to read a lot about astrology, and I don't anymore, but there's a lot of things that you can learn from astrology that are super important for life. And, one of the things that you learn when you study astrology is like the difference between the negative effects of Pluto and the negative effects of a planet like Saturn. They're dramatically different. They're both considered to be malefics because they are tied to losses and delays. But their actions in your life are fundamentally different. So the way that Pluto works, Pluto is like solvent. Pluto wrecks things. It's absolute and utter destruction. It's dissolution. It's the highest, most intense form of dissolution that you can face. Whatever Pluto touches, it dissolves. While Saturn is more about delays and obstacles and painful growth. With Saturn, something is shaken, but if you work hard, you're able to rebuild it. But with Pluto, there is no possible, there's no rebuilding anything with Pluto. It's just gone. But the good thing with Pluto is, even though it's terrible and it feels awful, there is always rebirth after Pluto goes away. So there's something to be said about like setting something on fire and seeing it burn, is that after it's gone, now you have a canvas to work on. And the structures that perish were structures that were already half rotten. So seeing them go away, fade away, isn't as painful when you realize that there's also a lot to gain by saying goodbye to these things. So somebody in chat is sharing their experience with weight loss. And they say, when I was obese, 300 pounds, my father told me since I was 80 pounds overweight, put 2 bags on each shoulder, 40 pounds each, and you will see what a dramatic extra weight is. Yeah, it's a lot of extra weight. And it's like carrying a backpack full of rocks everywhere you go, of course. So that's the thing about losing things, is like hidden within loss, there is also a win. In every loss in your life hides a win, because there's always a trade-off. So when you win, look for the hidden loss. But when you lose, look for the hidden win and focus on that. It's a really good way of getting through grief and sorrow. And obviously, if you have lost something of great importance, imagine that you lost your husband or your wife or something as dramatic as that. It can absolutely obliterate you. And you hear me saying there's a hidden like blessing or win in that grief. Probably feels like an insult to you. And I get that. And I absolutely get that. But as time goes by and the wounds heal and you adjust to the new life without whatever it is that you lost, you start seeing the other colors. It just takes time, you know? And, you know, I kind of want to talk about probably like one of the last things about the art of losing that I feel is important is, you know, I was reflecting a lot on this a while ago. I have especially because of the Pacific Palisades fire, I got to reflect a lot about people and loss. And when you're on a path, it's very easy to see, you know, what you're losing when it happens directly. Something that you really valued is lost. Very easy to see. But there is a type of loss, you know, that you're not necessarily aware of, like we're kind of blind to. And it's the loss of things that we miss by omission. You know, the paths you don't take. And I know we talk a lot about that before when I was saying like about all the lives that you didn't get to live. When it came to like choosing like a path, a profession or something. But this is different. What I'm talking about here is you're always choosing things. And sometimes you want to have two things at the same time, but you realize it is impossible, so you postpone one of them. Kind of put them in the back burner. Or you feel like you're gonna be much better off if you kind of hold out a little and wait instead of taking it on the moment that you crave it. So to give you an example, there's people who work a lot, but they don't really want to use their earnings. They feel like having a very big savings account is a smart move. Maybe they invested in stocks. Maybe they buy cryptocurrency. They feel like if they don't use this money and they keep it in their account, it'll grow, and eventually down the line, they will be able to reap the benefits of this money without having to touch the actual money, you know? We see the same idea with women who freeze their eggs. You know, women are told you can have it all. You can choose to have a career into your 40s and you can freeze your eggs and then get them implanted when you're older and have the children that you wanted to have without jeopardizing your earnings, right? Freeze your eggs. You can be a power career woman and a mother at the same time. No problem. And that's great. I think that people have possibilities of doing many things. Choosing a path but not really choosing it. Being lukewarm about closing doors. I get that. The problem is this doesn't always work. When you choose a path, you commit to the path, and all the other paths are just penciled in. You don't know what's going to happen down the line. We are encouraged to do this, washy thing to keep many doors open that should have been closed. And I'll give you just one example. I don't know if you guys know what the marshmallow test is. Do you know what the marshmallow test is? So the marshmallow test is a psychology test that is supposed to measure, it's not intelligence in children, but will, like willpower. Are you capable of delaying gratification in order to get something, to get a bigger reward? And psychologists say that this is a key element to success. Children who do well on this test, according to the psychologist, will have a much easier time in life than children who fail. Do you want to know what the test is? So they put children in a room with cameras, and they give each child a very delicious treat. For example, a marshmallow. For example, a chocolate bar. Something not too big, but delicious. And they tell the children, there's a mirror in the room, there's a plate with a treat, and there's cameras. And they tell the children, I have just given you a marshmallow. I'm gonna step out for a little bit, and when I come back, if you haven't eaten the marshmallow, I'll give you another one, and you'll have two, and then you'll be able to eat them. You can eat it right now, and if you choose to eat it, that's fine, but I won't give you another one when I get back if you do. So the person administrating the test leaves the room, and they just watch the children, what they do. And they leave them there for like 10 to 15 minutes with the marshmallow, just waiting for the person to come back and to give them another. And there's children that will just play with the marshmallow, like look at it and like touch it and even lick it, but they don't eat it until they get back and they receive a second marshmallow. And then there's children who just eat it right away. And we're told that the children who succeed at this will have a better life, because we're told to learn how to postpone gratification. We're told to learn how to have two paths open. So you chose that you wanted to be a career woman and you didn't want to be a mother because you prefer to have like a high-paying job. But don't worry, we can leave the door open because we're going to freeze your eggs. It's like the second marshmallow. Don't worry. We'll give you a second marshmallow when we come back, right? The problem is life doesn't really work that way. The other path is just penciled in. The only path that is written in stone is the path you're taking as you're walking it. Everything else is just penciled in. It's possibilities in a soup of possibilities that may or may not congeal, and you're just making very high-risk bets on what you're doing, because the person who froze her eggs, between the moment that she froze her eggs, she's thinking the whole time, don't worry, I'll work for years, and when I'm 50, I'll get the eggs implanted in my uterus and I'll have a child and I will be able to be a mom as well. So I'll get to have the cake and eat it too. The problem is, while she's doing this, she has left these frozen eggs in the hands of a company. The freezer the eggs are in could malfunction. The eggs could become unfrozen and get damaged. The company can go under and declare itself in bankruptcy, and her eggs are gone. Or even everything could go right, but once she's 50 and she's no longer fertile and she goes get the eggs implanted, none of them work out and she's left childless. So she put all of her hopes and dreams on this path, penciled in path that she, she traced for herself, and It was just an illusion. It was never there. So now she's a victim of the path that she didn't choose. Now she has to face the music. There was a path that you chose. That path closed other doors for you. You might have taken this placebo, right? This imagination placebo that you took, thinking that you're going to have to, that the door remains open and you have these eggs frozen. But when push comes to shove, is this a real possibility, or have you lost the possibility forever because you chose a different path? This is the same if somebody decides to save his money, puts all of their money in the bank, decides that they're gonna invest this money or buy cryptocurrency or keep it in the savings account and like interest rates will accumulate, whatever. They don't spend this money. And instead of reaping the benefits of all of this, waiting and being frugal while earning a lot and being responsible and doing all of the right things, and maybe one day the bank files for bankruptcy, all the savings are gone, everyone's savings gone. He never got to enjoy any of the money he made. He spent years and years working and saving every penny, and now it's gone. Because he didn't spend it. He chose to have a different path. And you know what's the terrible thing, though? Is not just that you can lose things that are just penciled in without being aware of it, but the worst part is the other prospect. Imagine if this guy, instead of saving the money, he would have chosen to spend it. Imagine this guy would have chosen to go crazy and spend every penny. He took a trip around the world. He bought a sports car. He, hose and coke and party and crazy. And he spent all the money. He would have been left with a lingering feeling of guilt and sorrow for spending it. Every day he would look at his bank account and see a big fat zero on it and think, oh my God, if only I had been more responsible, I would have this money. I would have all of these savings. But maybe he wouldn't have all of these savings. Maybe the bank would have declared bankruptcy and he would have been left without a penny and without that sports car and the vacation and the hose and coke. None of it. The alternative could very well be none of it. So this is why it's very important to understand that the path that you choose is the path you're actually choosing every day. Like the path you're walking is the only path that is set in stone. Every other path is like penciled in. And even if you do things that you think that favor the present over the future or the past, even if you think it's irresponsible or stupid or dumb, letting things relegated to a possible future that you don't even know if it's coming, like don't eat the marshmallow, let it sit. I'll bring you another one. And maybe it's the worst decision, right? Maybe something happens to your marshmallow and the person never comes back. And now you're left with no marshmallow. So maybe you're like dumb if you eat it and smart if you don't and you wait. But maybe you're like even smarter if you eat it again, because you're taking into account possibilities that the experiment never told the children. Like, okay, if you wait, maybe I'll come back and give you two, but maybe they won't come back and give you two, and your friend is going to eat your marshmallow when you look away, and now you're left with no marshmallows. So this is like the midwit graph, where like the stupid person is like, and they're like, I'll eat marshmallow now. And then there's like somebody who thinks that they're very smart being like, I'm not going to eat the marshmallow. I'm going to wait. I'm going to freeze my eggs. I'm going to buy crypto. And then there's like the guru, like the guy, like with the Jedi, like with the super smart guy being like, nah, I'm going to eat the marshmallow. I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to travel the world. Screw the future. So anyway, that's kind of what I feel about about losing things. I don't know if you guys have lost anything of value, of meaning. I think the most valuable thing I have ever lost, and I didn't completely lose it, it was just for a moment, but I, for a while, thought I was kind of losing my sanity. That was a very scary thing. That was scary, scary, scary. Like, that's, I think it's the worst thing that you could lose is your mind. I could lose everything. Like, I wouldn't mind. I could be in a wheelchair. I could lose the capacity to speak. I could go blind, and it would be terrible. But I feel like the worst thing that I could lose is my sanity. These people that grow old and instead of just dying, they go crazy before dying, start hallucinating with like Nazis or like monsters or stuff like that. That must be terrible. Because that is one thing that I would have to come to terms with. Now I want to read you. I don't really like poetry. Usually I find it stupid and like lame, and sometimes it makes me feel super cringe when I read poetry. There's just very few poets that I like. There's a guy called Billy Collins that I do love. His poetry is like not pretentious, very mundane, but at the same time transcendent, and it feels very nice, so I like it. And then there's other poets and specific poems that I like. This one is by Elizabeth Bishop, and it's called The Art of Losing. It's probably my favorite poem, and it's not a very long poem. It's called One Art, actually. I'm going to read it to you. It's not a very long poem, but it's very good. It says, "The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day. Accept the fluster of lost door keys. The hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster, some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing is not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster." I think it's a beautiful poem because by the end of the poem, she betrays the fact that it is actually a disaster. Like, as much as you want to convince yourself that it's not a terrible thing, that it's easy to cope with, in the end, it is a disaster. Like, we hate losing things, how difficult it is. So difficult to lose things. There's another one about something similar. It's called Forgetfulness by Billy Collins. This is also a beautiful poem about losing. In this case, memories, losing memories. This is a lovely poem. The name of the author is the first to go, followed obediently by the title, the plot, the heartbreaking conclusion, the entire novel which suddenly becomes one you have never read, never even heard of. As if, one by one, the memories you used to harbor decided to retire to the southern hemisphere of the brain, to a little fishing village where there are no phones. Long ago, you kissed the names of the 9 muses goodbye and watched the quadratic equation pack its bag. And even now, as you memorize the order of the planets, something else is slipping away. A state flower, perhaps, the address of an uncle, the capital of Paraguay. Whatever it is you're struggling to remember, it is not poised on the tip of your tongue, or even lurking in some obscure corner of your spleen. It has floated away down a dark mythological river whose name begins with an L as far as you can recall. Well on your own way to oblivion, where you will join those who have even forgotten how to swim and how to ride a bicycle. No wonder you rise in the middle of the night to look up the date of a famous battle in a book on war. No wonder the moon in the window seems to have drifted out of a love poem that you used to know by heart. I love Billy Collins. He's so wonderful. Such a wonderful poem. There's poems I hate and there's poems I love. So when people ask me, like, do you like poetry? I never know what to say, because there's poetry that I absolutely, it makes me feel, it's revolting to me, like pretentious, empty, not interested at all. And then there's poems that are just so nice. A little bit too complicated. I don't think it was too complicated. Maybe I didn't read it quite right. What do you guys think? Do you have stories of things that you have lost? Do you want to ask me something? I feel like this was going to be a longer stream about loss. I feel we hold on to things so much. I personally, for example, there's assumptions that I have that I maybe shouldn't be assumptions. Like sometimes I feel like everything that I do in my life that is difficult and challenging will be worth it, because in the future I will have, all these relationships with people who love me and the memories of all the things that happened. I don't know if you guys know this, but I make a lot of photo albums and scrapbooks. I've never shared this with anybody outside of like my closest circle. But I do. I take a lot of care. One of the reasons is I don't like the cloud, so I don't like to have my pictures on the cloud. I feel like at any moment everything can be lost, and printing them and having them in like a tangible way is much smarter, because I'm holding on to it, right? I'm holding on to these memories. So I make albums, and the problem is I am very afraid of losing them. Like if there was like a fire or something, or moving, and I lost these albums, I would feel really bad. Like I'm counting on them. And it's like a memory collector. That's in part why I feel like if I was to ever lose my sanity, it would be the hardest hit, because you'll lose all your memories, your identity, all the things we've talked about during this video would be gone. Like you would be back in La La Land with and you would effectively be the drunk guy in the corner and the figure skater and everything else, because you had lost your mind, right? You're back in the embrace of darkness, in an undefined space where you're no longer who you thought you were, Your identity's gone. Your memory's gone. You're now just undefined. And that's why crazy people think they're Napoleon, right? Because they can be anyone they want. They're not constrained by the definitions of the sane. Because the definition of something is a very left hemisphere of the brain type of thing, right? And I don't like to talk about hemispheres because I feel like all of that is honestly probably a lie. Like, I don't think the brain is like divided its functions in between the hemispheres like it was some sort of machine, right? But for the sake of clarity and understanding, let's pretend like it's real. The right hemisphere of the brain is the feminine side of the brain. So it's reflective and it's chaotic and it's dark, and in it, everything is mixed up. There's no order. It's where intuition comes from. It's the right side of the brain. When children are born, they are primarily using the right side of the brain. It's the side of the brain that deals with instinct, gut, sensations, but related to your interior. And for the same reason, children are very creative. Children are very intuitive, very creative, because they don't have anything clearly defined. See, that's why I wanted to be the figure skater and the drunk guy and all of that, because it is all a confusion inside the right hemisphere of the brain. It's like a soup where everything is connected. And you get to be everything because you're nothing and everything at the same time. Nothing is defined, not even yourself. People who use their gut a lot, people who have very strong intuitions, are pulling things from the side of the brain. It's a very difficult hemisphere to access once that your brain is fully formed, which is why people who have very strong intuitions seem like magicians to the rest of us. It's like they have telepathy or magic. It's because they are able to access a part of the brain that comes before cognition, before logic, before definitions. It's more primal and difficult to access. The other side of the brain grows as children grow older. It's the left side, like the left hemisphere. That's the one that's the side of the brain that defines things, that makes, it makes that distinction. It discerns between things that are and things that are not. It likes definition, order, logic. It understands things as they are, not as they could be, or what they maybe could possibly become. That's the left hemisphere. So as you grow older, when you're born, you're entirely right hemisphere dominant. The baby doesn't know logic, doesn't know concrete reality. The baby is still in a world that is half a dream. As we grow older, we become left side dominant. We buy into all of these structures of what is real and what is not, what is possible and what is not, how things are defined by what they are and what they're not. And we build all of these castles on the left side of the brain. But as you get older and as you start losing grip on reality, because old people and crazy people, they lose access to the left side of the brain. They go back. It's a retreat into the right hemisphere, where life is like a dreamlike state. Possibilities are endless. You can be Napoleon. You can be an astronaut. The neighbor knocking on your door, it could be a Nazi looking for you, Start losing grip on reality and drift away in a world of wonder and dreams. In the world of the right hemisphere, things are never lost. They're never quite lost. You can always regain them because it's the world of imagination. You know, when a children asks you, are unicorns real? Are mermaids real? The true answer to that question is not, they're not real. The true answer to that question is, they're real in your imagination. Because on that side of the brain, where dreams come from, unicorns and mermaids are just as real as an elephant or a table. They're all living together, mixed in that world. And when we create meaning that transcends the things that we can see, we are pulling that meaning from the right side of the brain. We need to use both of them, both sides, to make sense of reality. But it's important to understand that our sense of attachment to things, not wanting to let go of things, is very left-coded. And we need to embrace the right side of the brain a little in order to be able to navigate life more effectively. So that's my final thoughts on this. Anyway. So, we have 14 concurrent viewers, and I'm going to ask the question that I often ask people when they join is anybody in here coming directly from YouTube? Like, do any of you who are watching me don't know who I am? Are you watching because you knew me and you were subscribed? Are you watching because you got an email from me? Or are you watching because YouTube just offered you my thumbnail? I'm hoping one day I'll get somebody in this room that will say that YouTube recommended me to them. All right, so I don't know if there's a lot of lag or if nobody really is here from YouTube. I'm still like positive that one day somebody will be in here who doesn't know me. In any case, if you guys, thank you. That's very sweet. Thank you for saying that. So if you guys haven't, if you guys enjoy my podcast, I don't even know if it's a podcast. Should we call it a podcast? What is this? I don't know. In my imagination, this is like a meditative space where I come and I talk about things that I'm thinking about, and I have a chance to interact with people, and I want to make it as cozy and slow-paced as possible. You see, I have an issue with YouTube, social media in general. Sometimes I feel like I am an artifact out of time. You know, when they talk about like art, like object out of their time or something, because I can't deal with social media. I hate it. I have deleted most of my accounts. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok. I just really hate how it screws with it creates these attention loops that are impossible to break. And the more I stayed on these loops that fed my short attention span, the worse I got in terms of being present in the moment in my real life. I just lost interest in whatever was happening around me because it couldn't compete against permanent stimulation. I had like a 6-second attention span. So what I want to do is like do exactly the opposite. Like, I don't want to have any gimmicky titles. I don't want to have a show where I'm like talking super fast and trying to convey as much information as possible in the least amount of time, you know? I want this to be a space where things are slow And maybe people can listen while they do other things like cooking or whatever. But it's just something nice to listen to and reflect. A palate cleanser for all the manic content on YouTube and social media. Is that site's description the same as the other one you had? So right here, this is a newsletter. It's a new newsletter exclusively for YouTube. So if you add your email here, what I do is I send out an email every time that I'm coming on stream, kind of like a heads up. I will send you an email telling you a little bit about what we were going to talk about that day. Obviously, I can't really tell you exactly what I'm going to discuss because I don't even know it myself. Like, normally I have some idea like running through my head. I come here with that idea in mind, but then the actual shape the conversation takes while I'm here, I have no control over. It's just me, my brain finding loops of meaning, I suppose. But so I will give you like a general idea of the theme of the day and a link to the stream, and that's pretty much it. Because I don't have social media, like this is the only way to keep on top of what I'm doing, because the algorithm on YouTube, I don't really trust the algorithm. Even if you follow and whatever, it's a very low chance that it's going to recommend me, I think. I don't want to leave it in the hands of the algorithm is what I'm trying to say. Especially because I don't want to be all gimmicky and like appeal to the lowest common denominator. Oh my God, there was this woman, I don't know what her name was. She was everywhere for a while. Like right now, they're really pushing Benny Blanco. I've been getting videos recommended of Benny Blanco. I had no idea who he was. He's this chubby guy with like curly hair. Turns out he's like a music producer who's engaged to Selena Gomez now. I learned this because YouTube kept pushing content about him. Turns out he's like in every single podcast now. It's everywhere, like, and I get it pushed. I don't care for music producers. I don't care about Selena Gomez, but I get this guy pushed in every single like story, video, short, whatever. I get the face of this dude. How do they do this? Like, I'm guessing this is like a publicity agent. How do they get him on every like story? Like, why is YouTube recommending me this guy? Why is YouTube recommending me this guy? I don't get it. I absolutely don't get it. Oh, sorry. It's just, it got slow again and I was trying to fix it. And I accidentally turned on a MIDI that I had in a different scene. I think it's good now. Thank you. You might have listened to songs he's produced. He made a lot of songs. That makes sense. Yeah, I could have. Sometimes I'll leave songs like video music, like music videos open while I do things around the house. So maybe music that he's produced has been playing. Then they would recommend him. That's an interesting theory, actually, now that you mention it. I normally listen to more of a folky and independent music, but sometimes I just feel like listening to just straight hardcore pop. It'll be fixed, I feel like, in a minute. Can you hear me though? That was a while ago. Okay, you guys, I think I'm gonna head out. I don't know if you can hear me, what I'm saying, or if it's just lagging completely, even my voice. But in case you're still listening, it has been a pleasure talking to you. I had a really good time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys again on Monday. I think we're gonna stick to this time slot. I don't think we're gonna go back to the 10 a.m. one or 9 a.m. one, just because I feel like there's people in the Americas that have an easier time joining at this time than they had when I would be on very early. So I will see you guys again on Monday. Have a wonderful time. Thank you so much for joining. You guys are a pleasure. I'll see you guys soon.